our public meeting, and we are glad you're here. This is a good thing. Tonight we're going to meet while there is also a Board of Works meeting at 5:15 and a County Council meeting at 6:30 tonight. These hours hopefully will fit as we're trying to fit in between the Home Avenue Book Club meeting, a family story time, and a senior dance group who'll be here at 6:30, so you're all welcome to stay and dance at 6:30. This is a good thing. I love the work that I do for the library, and I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to serve, and am dedicated to making the library the best system that we can have. I want this to be a collaborative effort, and we look forward to working with many to get this done for the future of the Franklin and White River branches and all the branches that we have. This meeting is being videotaped and will be posted later at the JCPL and My Franklin Library websites. There is also a special email input button on the My Franklin Library website, along with most board members' current emails. There are plenty of ways to keep in contact with us and give us input, and we appreciate that. Anybody else? Todd, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to welcome everybody to this June 4th public hearing in Franklin. We hope to hear ideas and suggestions about solving the needs of the Franklin and the White River branches of the Johnson County Public Library System. That's Johnson County, that's all the county. We have no timetable for which we'll do things. I want you to know we're a board that's committed to making the Johnson County Public Library the very best system that it can be. And that system includes Trafalgar, Clark Pleasant, Franklin, and White River. We don't have all the answers, but we are accessible tonight. We're accessible via the website, jcplin.org. Our emails are on there, and most of us have a cell phone on there, so we should always be accessible. Tonight we're beginning a new process. This meeting is not scripted, although I am looking at my notes here. We intend this to be a collaborative effort with all the community moving forward. We hope all of you in attendance will bring a careful, cheerful, and positive spirit in deciding how this board moves forward and addressing the needs that are in the Franklin branches and the White River branches at this time. And we expect to hold these meetings at all 4 branches because it is a county-wide library district. And we are going to open a microphone up. We want you to speak 3 minutes plus or minus, give or take, and be respectful that there are a lot of people that want to be heard, so we want everybody to have that opportunity, and we realize that some people might not be here till 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and we intend to be here till 6:30 to hear all those that have something to say. So at this point, I think Mr. Wirtz, Richard, you are number 1 on the list.
I'm Richard Wirtz, a citizen of Franklin and Johnson County for many years. I appreciate the opportunity to address the board. First, I talked with Bev, and I think it's very important that Franklin and Johnson County have a strong library system. And as a newly elected city council in Franklin, I want you to know that I feel that we would work with the Johnson County Library Board in the future with a plan that will work in the mutual interest of the citizens and taxpayers of Franklin. Unfortunately, the last proposal did not work, but I want you to know that we are open and receptive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Mr. Chambers.
I also want to thank the board for all the hard work they've done, and Bev, and I think that the entire board has worked hard on this. I was on the advisory committee, and I think you know I didn't back spending so much money on it, but I did think it's very important that we have a library in downtown Franklin. It's the center, should be the center of everything in the city, and it needs a big boost, and I think that's why that the city was going to do the $3.5 million plus the land for the library. My suggestion would be, and I think it's been suggested, you have a kind of a branch downtown. That's probably the best way to go. In my feeling, that you could have a branch where you have computers, because a lot of people either don't have computers or they don't want to use their home computers for certain things. But you could also have a pickup and drop off for books, videos, and music. With having a courier maybe make a run from here down there every day, and people could order online. It's very easy. I just looked at that today. It's very easy to order any of those three things and drop it off when you're through with it downtown, and the courier would bring it back. If they made one trip a day, it would make very good for the people downtown, I think, that want to use the downtown branch. It'd also bring people downtown, like what was one of your original intentions. I don't think the city would object to it if you wanted to buy the old city building. It looks like a very nice building. It would probably require some remodeling, but it would not be all that expensive. And it's a beautiful building. It's only a block each way from the courthouse, closer than the original library downtown was. And I believe that that could be very useful in that sense, and do all of these things that you need. People could still walk and ride bikes and such to the downtown library. And like I say, they could return books. If you want to go more expensive, I would say, and I think that the city would go along with probably selling you that building. They did not want to sell it to a private company or something, but I think they would to another government entity like the library system. The other thing is, if you want to spend more money, you could build on to the south here. That was one of the original things I suggested. If you did away with that south driveway and attached to this building, go as far as you can, make parking spaces all just like they are out in front here, all the way down as far as you can go. And I think that would probably do the job for many years here. You could even go with a two-story building there. They have said you couldn't build onto this building. I mean, you could building on, like building over a building. That's been done before a lot of times. It's expensive though. But you certainly could build down here if you really need it that bad. Make the drive on the very end of the property and coming around back. You could even have a book drop off on the back side, similar to what I suggested for White River, where you drive around the building and drop it off and back. So I think there's a lot of things could be done, but I think downtown is important, and I think the branch down there would probably do the folks the most good if you don't want to spend an awful lot of money. But I think you can go up to 12 million. You could easily build on here and do the things you want to do by expanding to the south. Thank you.
Mr. Chambers, would you tell us what township you live in, please?
White River.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Jim Williams.
I'm Jim Williams. I want to decline right at this time. There might be something I want to say later on after I hear.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Tabling?
I'm Les Staley. I'd also like to decline at this point in time, perhaps speak a little bit later.
Okay, very good. Mr. Welberg?
Same here. I'd like a chance to speak towards the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Judy Wright?
Hello, I'm Judy Wright. I live in Needham Township and have lived there my whole life. My main objection to the library proposal was the parking garage. I don't feel secure going into a parking garage. I noticed that on the survey you took of different sites and the people, what they wanted, more people wanted it outside the city than wanted, or out toward the outskirts than wanted it on that site that you chose. I don't really see a reason for having it downtown. Also, I question the need for a new library. I use the library twice a week. I never have trouble finding a spot to park. Most of the time I can park out in front. Only twice a year do I have to park on the side. So I don't think that's, maybe we don't need a new library. Also on the facts sheet that you have an area in there for business media and business items or meetings and business things. I don't think we need to do that. That's something we could leave out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay, forgive me on the last name here. Rosemarie Schiffler? Stiffer.
Hello, and thanks for the meeting. Some people who know me know that one of my favorite quotes is that this is from a famous author, not from me. I have always imagined that paradise will be a kind of library. I began hanging around libraries in 7th grade, and I never could break the habit. This is a library I visit most often, so my remarks focus on this library and this site as we are meeting. And I thank the gentleman. I don't want to repeat exactly what he said, but I'm glad someone else is thinking on the same channel that I'm thinking. And that is, this particular site may not be in downtown Franklin, but it is a marvelous site. Has the board sold the land on both sides of this site? It said in the Daily Journal in 2009 that you were going to be selling the properties on both sides. And if those are still yours, I think you've got what you need right here. The reasons we were told not to think about this building were twofold. It would not support a second story, and it would not accommodate sufficient parking for the size building you were thinking. Well, a wing on this building, done by a good engineer and architect, could support a second story. And if the size were reduced to a size that a really imaginative architect and the staff who know what's needed could work together on, you could accommodate sufficient parking. I have become somewhat familiar with the wonderful parking statutes or standards for this wonderful town. And if the building size were reduced to perhaps 45,000 square feet total instead of 70,000, you would need fewer than 200 parking spaces. And that would be a 50% reduction in what you would need otherwise. And the site is beautiful. If a two-story wing were looking at those beautiful trees out there, I mean, it's just a glorious place to be. So, those are my comments.
Thank you, Rosemary. What township do you live in, Rosemary?
Oh, I'm in Union Township.
Union, thank you.
The township.
Mr. Bill Cox.
My name is Bill Cox. I live in Franklin Township, and I don't understand exactly why it is we need a library other than what we've got, period, and I'll tell you why. We're all sitting here in this room. Why can't this room be used as part of the library? Oh, you need a meeting room though. We got a city that's got a bunch of empty buildings downtown. Why can't they be used? I asked that earlier and I was told probably because we might not be able to find the staff. Well, if we can find the staff for an addition to the library, why couldn't we find a staff that would go uptown? What staff's handling this meeting? We were able to find a staff for that, so why can't that staff handle that meeting uptown, wherever it may be? You're talking about whatever it may be, 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, 15 million. There's a lot of people right now that don't have a job. They can't afford $1, let alone $15 million or 10 million or 5 million. We need to be realistic about this whole thing. Right now is not the time to be talking about spending money, period.
Amen.
I'm opposed to it.
Mr. Eugene, get me on the last name.
Novak.
Novak.
I wish to, not talk right now, but a little later,
Okay.
after I hear more.
Carrie Randall.
I'll take a different viewpoint on this. I'm White River Township. Libraries cannot be defined by their buildings alone, but what is embedded in them, where there are people inside to help guide patrons to the necessary tools available. In an age where technology is changing rapidly, the library is one place where you can gain knowledge and understanding of what is new and impacting our society currently and in the future. We live in a world of information overload, where Google alone estimates that nearly 4 billion searches per day are conducted on their site. So now, more than ever, the world needs information professionals to sort, assess, collate, and present information. Because for a lot of people, trying to get good information off the net is like trying to drink from a waterfall. For the gentleman who retorted in the Daily Journal editorial that libraries are outdated because you can find everything you need on the internet, let me create a couple wiki pages for you that you try to use as valuable sources to cite. Libraries are no longer just information vaults or the gatekeepers of information. The gates are wide open, and it is the library staff that lights the path for people once they're through that gate. It used to just be about information. Now it's about leverage, turning information into knowledge. The public needs to stop thinking like it's 1911 when the library was established before the age of technology, because the JCPL stopped thinking it was 1911 many years ago, and is now providing users with access to online digital resources. And the really valuable and credible information from these resources is not free or cheap. Ebooks, 24/7 online access to library services, public access computer usage, public programs, interlibrary loans, out-of-print sources, information that is not otherwise publicly available, assistance for locating health, financial, and government information, especially for those who are being hit hard by the economy, story hours for children, and many other valuable educational services needed by the community. As a teacher, my colleagues and I rely on libraries to allow for our poorer population to have access to all of the above that would not otherwise be available to them because they do not have the necessary resources on their own. When I work with students on gathering information necessary to further their understanding of concepts and ideas, there is no way it can be done solely within the confines of a school day. Students must continue accessing information on their own, but when the 5 Johnson County schools report free and reduced lunch rates of 16.5, 29.3, 41.9, 42.1, and 42.8 percentages, the only places are going to be able to access any needed information is the public library. For the leader of the most recent Vote No campaign against the library, how do you think the 42.1% of the school district in which you live is going to succeed when there are only 16 computers available at the public branch in Franklin? While you may think that the quoted school statistics don't have a bearing on the needs of the library, the idea of it takes a village to raise a child has never been more important. In anticipating the future, we need our library system to expand their available resources and spaces so that children, who are the future leaders, don't stay stagnant or fall behind in that knowledge. The JCPL provides all residents with unlimited access to the reading and information resources that will mean the difference between success and failure for residents as individuals, Johnson County as a community, and the United States as a nation. The JCPL is supported by a very modest contribution of public tax funds and provides a fabulous return on its investment by any nature. Sure, the library is an old-fashioned concept. So is democracy. So is equal opportunity. So is knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Grant? Doug Grant?
I'm Doug Grant from Union Township. First thing I'd like to do is thank and commend everybody who sits at that table because you've had a rough 8 weeks. This is a wonderful group of volunteers who, for simple love of the library and their community, come together and support education and library services in the county. And I would imagine each one of you at some point in the last few weeks has questioned why the devil you do it. So I wanted to say thank you for your time and your effort and some of the guff you've had to endure. I want to speak briefly to the process that brought us here. It's very much like the process that brought us to the Trafalgar Library. A lot of people didn't notice that occurrence. There was a beautiful library built in Trafalgar in 2007. It took years of planning, it took research, it took community forums and open opportunities for people to share their opinions and gather information. I think that was maybe a $13 or $14 million process. Is that about right?
5.4.
5.4. Oh, a whole lot less than I thought. Okay. Beautiful building. I don't know. For those of you who haven't been to it, it's flat changed the fabric of the Trafalgar area. It's changing that community, and I think that what we had an opportunity to do here and still possibly do in Franklin could change downtown and could change the fabric of this community. But the process was not one where this board sequestered itself and sat in a corner and came up with ideas on their own. The process that went into the referendum that we all voted on last month was exhaustive. It took several years. It was community forums. It was open houses. It was seeking information. There were pleas from this board and pleas from library staffs across the county for input from the community. Well, there's a lot of input here today. And I would hate to say this, and I don't want to diminish any of the ideas that come to the table today because they're all good ideas. They're all going to be considered. But many of you are at the table after dinner's been served because this process has been going on for several years. And it was open. It was, I think it was really well done. They took into consideration the needs. They talked to experts. They did an independent survey of 600 residents of the county. They opened up opportunities at each of the branches to hear from people in the county about what the library needed. They looked very closely at what this community needs. They considered countless locations, countless options, including expanding this site and that site and looking at vacant buildings everywhere. It was incredibly exhaustive, and I think it was very complete. And to suggest that this board has any agenda other than to provide the best possible and most cost-effective library services for the county of Johnson County, I think does a disservice to the people who spend so much time working toward this effort. So I would like to thank you for it. I think with the advisory council and the open community forums and those types of things, we've had an ample opportunity at this point to share our opinions and what we think needs to happen. Clearly, the county voted down the referendum, and I think everybody's satisfied that we need to move forward. I hope that some of the anger and the frustration and some of the vile nature of what's occurred over the last month can maybe be toned down a little bit, because I think everybody in this room wants this to be a positive process. We all want a positive place for our kids and our families to learn and to grow. And I've been a little disappointed at some of the approaches, but I think from what I've heard so far tonight, it seems to be positive, and I again want to thank this board for your hard work.
Jane Huey.
My name is Jane Huey. I'm a lifelong resident of Franklin. I am a teacher in the Franklin Community School Corporation. The two previous speakers took much of my thunder. I thank you very much for the work that you have done as a library board member. Through the years, I've known other people who served, and I probably was not as appreciative and supportive as I should have been. And one of the things that has come out of this process is that I realize that you need our support and our appreciation for a time-consuming job. The other thing I'd like to say, while the county voted down this proposal, you can't vote away the need. There may be lots of places to park, but when I come in and there are not enough spaces for children in the children's section, and every computer is filled, and I see senior citizens reading the magazines and browsing the stacks, we, at any given time, and the librarians offer invaluable help to me as a teacher and as a person when I can't find something, when I need books for my classrooms. They are so gracious at this branch, at Whiteland, at White River. I have not been to Trafalgar to get books, but I've been to all the others, and I have encountered nothing but gracious help over the years that I've taught, and some of you know that's quite a while because I have several students, former students, sitting in the room. But I just want to say, we have to look at the needs, and they're always telling the school system where there is great loss of revenue, be creative. We have to look at all the options, and I too feel that Franklin needs a branch where it is accessible downtown, and I say that, and this is the most accessible for me as a resident. But I think we need to look at creativity and what we can do with this site and perhaps some others. Thank you.
Ann Harrier.
My name is Ann Harrier, and I'm from White River Township. I'm a former member of the Johnson County Public Library Board. I joined the board about the time that the meetings were being held for community input into plans for the Trafalgar branch, and continued as a member well into the planning of the new Franklin branch. Both of these projects were part of long-range plans, which include future work at the White River branch. I served with people who saw the value of public education and a quality public library system. I was proud to serve with them and the director, Beverly Martin. At all times, the business of the board and the director was conducted in a thoughtful and professional manner. I'm therefore astounded at some of the insinuations and inaccuracies that have been stated of late. There are improvements to be made at both the Franklin and White River branches, and working together we can come to some solutions. Let's put divisiveness behind us and move forward with a civil exchange of ideas to achieve the goal of maintaining an outstanding library system such as we have with JCPL.
Libby Moore.
So much has already been said that I was thinking of saying, but I have to say that we do have to get beyond the divisiveness, that we do need a library, and you do need more computers. You do need more computer space. You do need a central place where students are picking up books. I'm a retired teacher, and I know, and I always knew the students who went to the library, and that didn't have anything to do with their financial backgrounds if they still got to the library. The library is so essential for the next generation. We feed them breakfast at school nowadays. We feed them lunch nowadays. We need to keep feeding their minds. And if we don't have adequate space to put books, we can't buy more books than we've got space for here. They have to throw books away. There has to be some place where real openness and absolutely enough space for books and computers. And contrary to what some people are saying, the computer generation has not diminished the membership of book readers and people who take out books. It has actually, in almost this whole state, improved. And we are behind most of the state with this size town. I was on a library board, and many of you have heard me speak of that, in Brownsburg. And I was on the board when we built the new building back in 1981. And we spent $1 5/10 million, and they griped about it and thought it was horrendous. But financially, you've got to move and get land before the times improve. Because if you have enough financial sense, it's going to increase in price. And not only is it going to increase in price, the purchase cost, but you're going to have to pay higher interest rate on what you get. So as you postpone things, you are causing yourself more money. 16 years later, we left that library able to expand. And 16 years later, they expanded it for 16 million. And that's before the turn of this century. And I'm saying, if you aren't sensible with your money, you need to get land now, because you've got the funds, and you need to come to an agreement about this, so that we won't buy and pay 5 to 10% more or 5 times more. There are people in this room who have had financial background, and I have had finance too. And I'm looking forward to a new library because the community needs it. All the children need it. We don't diminish them because they're poor. We should serve them more. Thank you.
Michael Stifler.
Hello, I'm from Union Township. I'm a librarian, though not at JCPL. I have about 4 points, so I'll make them as quickly as I can, and I do thank everyone on the board for all the work they put in. I have helped design libraries, including academic and corporate libraries, and was on the board or on the public committee for the Franklin High School. I helped design the media center there, putting in some fairly new concepts to come up with that design. But I was very concerned when we were helping with the Franklin High School that value wasn't being given. One of the things I brought up at that time was this cost seems to be very high in comparison to what we're getting. Where are the studies that we've seen? I think the same thing went on with the jail. The assumption was we should be spending as much as we can right now because in the future we won't be able to spend that money. It's really a value issue. And one of the things I see in libraries and academic libraries is that assessment for your value is something that is on the top of everybody's conference and everything they're thinking about. And I'm not sure that has actually trickled down to the public library. Or even, I'm not sure to county government, that everything you do has to be shown to be of value. As far as efficiencies go, I'm sure you've thought about it, but I would say that we need to think about the merger of Johnson County, Greenwood, and Edinburgh. I know when Minneapolis and St. Paul did it, they knew that it would take about 10 years to see the efficiencies, but 10 years is 10 years. Before we have any big designs, except for modifying a branch, I think that needs to be thought about. What do we do for the entire county? I know when I was involved with the process here in 2000, we were looking at some research that showed that children, and that was one of the roles we had identified, was sort of a gateway to reading for children, that the more footprints you had, the better off you were. So rather than have a very large site, a couple small sites, because you drew in children from 4 or 5 miles around. So rather than have one huge site, which drew children in from 4 or 5 miles around, we were thinking of a different site, a smaller site somewhere else, the other end of town, where you might draw more children that could come in and utilize the services. We went to a program on Friday in Trafalgar, and I am going to challenge the concept that it's changing the fabric of Trafalgar, the new Trafalgar branch. I've never seen so many for sale signs downtown. In Trafalgar, 22 years I've lived there. So I'm not sure that that statement that it's changing Trafalgar is true.
Joan Elliott.
My name is Joan Elliott. I live in White River Township. And I was beginning to have the feeling that this meeting was stacked. Most everybody seemed to be in favor of this whole library issue. And it just seems that the county voted, and the vote was very definite, that most people were opposing the borrowing of so much money that would be raising the taxes that we're already trying to struggle to pay. And I guess I don't have a whole lot to say other than I wish you would take into consideration and maybe have a meeting like this before any more big decisions. It's going to probably be the only mass meeting that you've got. So let's, give us all a chance to say what we have to say. And my issue has to do with money. My husband is retired. He had a stroke. He's partly paralyzed. My job is to take care of him, his house, his yard, and all of his medical care. So this is why I fight at every turn. Whoever is going to try to raise our taxes, and that includes the school board, the parks department, and now the library board. But it is a matter of just plain old dollars and cents. Thank you. Now I've got to go and feed my husband.
So you know, Mrs. Elliott, there will be other meetings across the county, White River, Trafalgar. We will have other meetings. This won't be the only one, and we hope to hear from a lot more people as we move out in the county. Thank you.
I hope I can be there.
I hope you can too.
Now I gotta go feed her.
Greg Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Bemis. Thank you, Board, for the efforts you have made. I wouldn't want to have the target you've had painted on you, and I can certainly appreciate what all you've done. Full disclosure, I did vote for this, and I was resoundingly defeated by a margin of 3-1, and I certainly respect referendums and democracy. I grew up in Franklin, a product of the old Carnegie Library, and truly enjoyed reading there. And I left Franklin for about 17 years. It was sort of a Rip Van Winkle effect. I came back and the town had doubled in size, and now we have this building. And I have to say, in fairness to all who are considering the issue, and I read every letter to the editor, and all of them seem to make sense to me, so talk about mixed emotions. Yeah, when I come in here and I bring my 3-year-old daughter, it seems like there's always room. It seems like the needs are being met currently. But I also have businesses in Columbus and in Bloomington, and I see the vibrant libraries that they have downtown. And they have larger population centers than us, and it certainly is somewhat of an apples to oranges comparison. But at the moment, because the population of this county, if I understand correctly, is supposed to increase by about 50%. So I think while the needs are being met today, I'm not so sure that this library is going to be something that's going to meet the needs very far into the future once the economy turns. I think back in the history of this county, other decisions like to build this courthouse is probably a lot more than what was needed at that time to meet the needs of citizens in the 19th century, but aren't we proud of that now? I'm not for forcing people to pay more taxes than they want to. As I said, this is a speech of mixed emotions because I see both sides, and I certainly respect a 3-1 referendum. But wouldn't it be a nice legacy down the road if we look back and we had a vibrant library downtown? And a lot of good comments have been made here about the free and reduced lunches, and my business is education, so I see a lot of those needs. And I think if there's a way we could come together as a community, I don't know if there are debt obligations as they come off that could lower the tax increase that's being proposed. I don't know if there are grants or fundraisers that we could look at as a community. I don't think we could take up a collection tonight and get $30 million, but can we find some ground in the middle where maybe we can have what we want downtown and be proud of that and be prepared for a town that may someday be 35 or 40,000. It was 11,000 when I left, it was 22,000 when I came back. And I just have a feeling, especially with the industry and business coming in, the things they look for in the quality of life in school, wouldn't it be nice if this was a legacy that we had that we could add down the road? So I applaud you for your efforts, and I certainly respect those that voted against it. 3-1 is a resounding decision, but I'm hoping as a community, we do what we do in Franklin best and in this county, and we find a way to come together. Thank you.
Linda Teeter.
Hi, my name's Linda Teeter, and I've lived in Franklin all my life. And I was one that was very sad when the library board, many decades ago, decided to come out here. I loved the old library. It was fabulous. But at the time, and I can't tell you who was on the board, but they promised us that this would be the move for the future, that this would be everything we ever needed. And I certainly hope you still have that land, because if you need to expand, you need to expand here. Downtown, which is only, 6 blocks away, isn't going to help all those little children that are in trouble on the north side or on the west side. You need to either, if you're going to do something like that, put something out where these little children are. You don't need to be downtown Franklin, and you certainly don't need a parking garage. But as I say, you all, whoever was on the board, promised us. I remember I thought, oh, why are they taking our library away? But they did, and here we are, and this is what you all made your promises to deal with, and expand here if you need to. Put more, reevaluate your square footage that you have. I've been to several meetings in this room that there was only 12 or 14 people at. I've been to little classes that was here. You've got a partition, you could make part of this computer labs, reevaluate what you have. Don't try to spend money that we don't have. And yes, Franklin is a wonderful place. And we all love Franklin. And I hope we all go forward. And I'm not denying that you have needs here, but reevaluate what you have before you spend our money. And hold the promises of 30 years ago. Thank you so much.
Larry Nunn.
Thank you for the opportunity to be heard today. I too had the privilege of serving on the advisory board and that for the design and everything of the new library. It was very, very interesting. We heard a lot of ideas and thoughts, input. A lot of the same people that are here today shared their thoughts at that time. I hope, for one, at the time I opposed the library as we had designed it at $30 million. But I said, if the voters approve it, I'll be the first to go out there and grab a shovel and say, let's build it, because the voters speak. And that. What I have a problem with is understanding the finances for number one. When you talk about location and our children, we have our city parks, our pool, and everything is just across the street. You go over there today and there's a lot of kids over there. Isn't this a pretty good location for the kids to be able to access the library? They built this 2 years after I came to Franklin. I had the privilege of going to the old Carnegie Library. It was nice. And that, they built this, just like the lady said, this is it. The board made their plans, supposedly in their master plan. They bought land, and they bought land. Now we own a lot of land here that's been taken off the tax rolls. But now they tell us we can't use it. Okay, then we wasted a lot of money there. Then we went downtown and we bought an administration building. Okay, maybe we needed that. We had money left over from the Trafalgar. Money must burn a hole in somebody's pocket, because, boy, we don't hold on to it. And that. And then on the corner across from Richard's Kitchen, there was an old dilapidated house. Lo and behold, the library bought it. It's going to be a parking lot for the administration building.
There's a parking lot right next to the building that I'll bet you can go down there anytime and you won't find 5 cars in it. But we bought that and now it's sitting there, not using it, being used for anything. We spent $2 million bond coming up to put all this together, Mr. Owens, and putting everything together to get this referendum. $2 million. That's a lot of money, folks. And how many more dollars are we going to continually, in my personal opinion, waste before we get to a point? We need a good library. We've got a good building. We've got room to build on. If we need more space here, let's build it. Let's utilize the space we have. I want strong programs for our kids. Our kids are our future. And I, for a taxpayer, if it's worthwhile, I'll pay the taxes. If it's wasteful for bricks and mortar and a Taj Mahal, I'm not going to pay it. And that. But let's utilize it. Let's make a plan. They mentioned in the paper that they were probably going to look at a master plan. I think it's an absolute necessity before another dime is spent that we look at a master plan. Where are we going? What does the whole county need? My wife done a little research on the internet. Salina, Kansas is just exactly, practically to the head, 2 times larger than the city of Franklin. Same way with the area of the city. So she emailed the librarian there in Salina, Kansas. They have a 60,000 square foot library, and they have one adjacent building, 3,400 square feet, that they use for some meetings and for youth programs and that. And they say that they are planning have an outstanding library system. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Bev might be, and that. But Salina, Kansas is a pretty forward-thinking community out there. They're not blessed in a situation like we are, where we have branches at Trafalgar, White River, and that, to where citizens from here can drive 4 or 5 miles, and you've got another beautiful facility to use. You drive 4 or 5 miles out in Kansas, and that's where you are. It's 4 or 5 miles out in Kansas. And that, and let's just stop and think about where we're at. The past is over, and that we don't need to build. We need to come together as a community and decide what's best for us and for our kids and for the future and for the taxpayers and that all together. Let's work together on this. Thank you.
Thank you. May I also just correct one thing on?
Yes, sir.
There's still 1.615 million of that still in the bank.
Okay.
Just I want to clarify that.
That's fine.
Okay.
I know there was $2 million that was bonded out and that, and I wasn't aware of how it had been spent.
Okay. I just
Thank
wanted
you,
to-
Todd.
Sure. Al Johnson.
You won't have to ask me which township I'm from. I'm from Mooresville. So I beg your indulgence, but I represent all the people from outside of the county that use the county libraries here. And I like the idea of the library. I think it's important for a progressive community like Franklin to have the right-sized library. I've got 2 points that I would make, and I think that it's going to be important and a really difficult job for the board to be able to determine and the architectural committee to determine what's going to be appropriate for 10 years from now or 20 years from now, as far as what size library you build. I've been a broker at Hilliard Lyons for 26 years now, so I follow a lot of technology stocks. All you have to do is look at Apple and realize that everything is going to be digital before you know it. I've got a granddaughter who's not going to have any textbooks this year. And I think that the up-and-coming generation is going to be totally different. So the two ideas that I have is, I think it's really going to be important to look ahead and right-size any library that you build. And that's going to be an extremely difficult thing to do because nobody knows in 10 years what it's going to look like, what the needs are going to be. And then second of all, whatever you build, you're going to have to be able to repurpose that facility so that whatever those needs are in the future, you're going to have to be able to change that so that you can accommodate those. So anyway, those are my ideas there.
Thank you. Gene McMurray.
Okay, I'm Jean McMurray, and I'm just a consumer. But I've been a library consumer since I was 8 years old. Not all of them in Johnson County, but I have been a member of this library since 1956. And I did vote no on the current proposal. That does not mean that I am opposed to enlarging this library. In the 80s, you brought all this property down here to enlarge the library. You bought the property north of here to enlarge the library. Then it's time to use the property we bought to enlarge the library. The library that I was a member of prior to coming here was the Jackson County Library. And I've been in the Jackson County Library in the last year. They have built an addition onto their Carnegie Library. It's a 2-story addition, large, open, and it has parking, all of it enclosed in one block. And it suits the community well, and Seymour is a much larger city than this town is. And I think you all need to really be thinking about this. My son just told me today that the latest Kindle will hold 3,500 books. I come to the library at least every 2 to 3 weeks. The last time I was here, at the computers, there was a couple of kids playing a game. And as I walked down the stacks, I thought, oh good, someone is using the computer in the cubicle. But no, they were reading a magazine. There was no one else there. I've been here day, evening, and night. I have driven by this library 5 days a week since 1963, because I worked at the Masonic Home. Now, it wasn't here was it here in 1963? No. But every day that it's been here, I've driven by it. How's that, Grandpa? I've never seen the parking lot full except when the Masonic Home has fireworks. Sorry.
And today.
And today.
And today. I did take the opportunity to park on the grass when I came back from the Masonic Home today because I thought it would be overcrowded.
Dave Dowd.
Hi, my name's Dave Dowden. I live here in Franklin, have for 40-some years. Some people call me a Johnny-come-lately, but I guess the main thing I wanted to say was last Saturday in the Daily Journal, a fellow by the name of Chris Wright wrote a letter to the editor, and it says about everything I could have ever thought of trying to get on one piece of paper. My comments to that is ditto. I think this board has created an atmosphere. Obviously, so far, most of the speakers that's been here aren't the 74% that voted against the referendum. But a couple of other observations. I read, I think, in the paper that the board, correct me if I'm wrong, but because all I know about the library is what I read in the paper. I've never been to a board meeting before. That's my fault, I guess. But it said that there's 95 employees, I believe, at the 4 branches, and there's $3.5 million salary and fringes that is paid annually to these people already. That the director makes $92,000 a year plus fringes to run this 95-person operation. For what it's worth, I just confirmed this today, the city of Franklin, to run that entire operation, which is the police, the fire, the city, or the sewer, the street, all the operation, has got 167 full-time employees. I believe they also have some part-time summer help or whatever. And that the mayor of Franklin, which I consider his job to be a little bigger and a little more important than what the director of the library's position is, makes $65,000. So I question why we need a $92,000 person running running an operation with 95 people in it. Secondly, I wonder why we need 95 people to do whatever happens in a library. Now, some of these people spoke, they know, like I said, I've only been in a library 2 or 3 times in my life. I asked my grandchildren about how many times they've been to the library. Very few. There's libraries at the school, they got computers, etc. The other thing, if indeed you do need more space to put computers, there's 22,000 square feet in the Murphy building. I imagine the city of Franklin probably give it to you. If not, anybody can buy it for $300,000 or $400,000. You can put a lot of computers in 22,000 square feet. The other option would be the building downtown that you bought for an administration building has 7,200 square feet. I know because I used to own it. And I don't know how many computers you can put in there or how many people you need in an administration office to run these 95 employees. But anyhow, I think you've got a lot of other options, and I think that Mr. Chris Wright was right on the numbers. Thank you.
Dave, if I might, in that letter, it also said this board's dollars of a $2 million bond. There's still 1.6.
How much did you spend, by the way, for advertising and promotion?
1.615.
Pardon?
And $2 million was the bond allocation.
No, I'm talking about how much.
There's 1.615 left, so that's $385,000.
So you spent $385,000.
That's not $2 million that was stated in.
I didn't, of course, mention that, but that was in the.
It was in that letter,
yeah.
and I just want that to be a point of clarification.
But you did spend $300,000 or $400,000
$385,000
on architectural fees and
consulting,
such.
studies. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I don't envy your job.
Mr. Cox, Steve Cox.
Well, I think about most of the points that I had have already been covered. The only thing I would like to reemphasize is, number one, I'm not against libraries. I think they provide a very important mission in our community. But the thing I would like for you to look at down the road is the effect that technology is going to have on libraries. It's affected every other part of our society tremendously. And I don't think that I think we would be remiss if we didn't think it was going to affect libraries also. I've got 2 Kindles. They store 3,500 books. I've got a cloud that I go to at Amazon that's got 100 and some thousand books. I'm hooked up to 14 libraries. I used to be in here at least twice a week. I don't come that often anymore because of that. I look at my grandchildren, and I see how they access information, and they're growing up accessing it through technology. So I think if we're looking at a long-term plan down the road, we need to take a look at how they want to access technology down the road. And convenience is a big thing to them. They don't want to go to the library and search through and find books. They'd rather go to their iPad, computer, or their e-reader and look through, download the books, read them, and go on about their business. And I think convenience is going to be a big part of what we do at libraries from now on. Brick and mortar is not going to be near as important as technology down the road. Thank you.
Steve,
Steve, what township do you live in?
Needham.
Needham? Mr. Moody?
Hi, my name's Gary Moody. I live in Franklin Township. There's 3 points I want to make. One, I'm a big downtown booster. You know, I hate what's happened to downtown. It's got a little better recently, but you know, I'll say that what I've been saying for the last 5 years is that the Hazlett building is a perfect place for a technology center. And if there's need for further space on down the road, then there's plenty of land here. In addition to the parcel that Ms. Haltom owns and the ones next to it, one of which is vacant. The second point that I want to make is that this referendum and the process leading up to it has been real debacle. I agree with the person that wrote the letter to the Journal that was just mentioned. And I think that everyone that's been involved in this debacle should resign promptly, because this library district obviously needs new leadership. And there, with, I'll do allowances for the new guy. But there were other things that are particularly disturbing that very few people know, and that's my last point, and that is that I see people here wearing T-shirts with a JCPL Centennial mention on it. And all of those shirts, the picnic napkins, the bookmarks, and all of the stuff that has been done to proclaim that is a lie. Because the library district was established in 1977 as a county library district. The records are at the county recorder's office. I would like to show anybody that would like to see them, just let me know. I know where that, I can find that file blindfolded. Those records are also here. This library is 35 years old, this library district. It has nothing to do with 1911 when the Franklin Library was established. And furthermore, in 2004, and the reason that this is still going on today, this lie is being told right now, is a cover story, because in 2004, Beverly Martin went to the Franklin City Council, told them that this is a city library district, and had them approve a 5% roughly tax increase, which went into effect in 2005. That is the Franklin City Council. This is all public record. I don't have to make any of this stuff up. I don't have to create any of this. This is all public record. There's even audio. And that paved the way for the bond issue for the Trafalgar Library. And speaking of a disservice to the people, that's a big disservice to the people at Trafalgar, the kids that are being led to believe that this library district is 100 years old. I mean, it's unspeakable. And in 2009, to top that all off, the library director and Mr. Debbie, who signed those documents, who was a trustee when the district was created in 1977, went to the city council, said, "We don't know if we're a city or a county library district, but we're here out of an excess of caution," I believe he said. Went to the county council the next week. They were going to cut the $2 million bond issue down to $500,000 or so. It was tabled per the director's request. It went back to the Franklin City Council the week later, August 17th, 2009. Mr. Deppie said, "Well, we just figured out that we're a city library district and therefore you can approve this $2 million bond issue." And that was a flat out lie. And that is another reason why there needs to be a change here. I mean, that should be obvious. If only the Daily Journal would report this, and the Indianapolis Star, so this information can get out.
Mr. Moody, you have had 3 minutes.
Thank you.
My name is Christy Judson, and I'm a resident of Franklin Township. And I supported the referendum, but certainly, as others before me have said, respect that it was defeated in a 3-to-1 vote. What I want to share with the board is I have a 4-year-old who's very patiently sat for over an hour over here in the corner. I don't think that we need more book space. I think we need more meeting space and more program space, especially for our little kiddos. And I think my peer group, many of us have little kids, I don't think people had a good understanding of that. You come here in the summer and story time for my age group has been relocated and there's not enough room for the games that we like to play. We need more room for our kids. And it's not necessarily books, because technology is certainly a factor, but we need social opportunities for our kids. And this library provides a lot of really neat programs for those kids, but we just don't have enough space. Secondly, I moved to Franklin shortly before the flood and saw an article in the newspaper that we needed volunteer caseworkers. And I used to work for the Red Cross and was now a stay-at-home mom, so I stepped up and volunteered to do that. And I cannot tell you how difficult it was to find a space in this city to meet with the families that I needed to meet with. These people had just lost everything. They didn't want to go sit in a Starbucks and talk to me about how they lost everything. I needed somewhere that I could make copies of some of the paperwork that I needed. And it was very, very difficult to find a space in this city that I could meet with those people. And I'm sure I'm not alone in finding difficulty with public spaces. So I hope that we move forward, because we do have some issues that need to be addressed. I think we need to move forward in a different way so that we can all work together. But as we move forward, I hope that the message to the public is it's not necessarily just about books, it's about meeting space, and it's about our kids, and it's about creating those opportunities that are very important for our kids, those social opportunities and those program needs. Thank you.
Drew Smythe.
Yes, my name is Drew Smythe. I'm a resident of Clark Township. I just wanted to bring up a couple of facts. Number one, there are 42,000 registered voters in the Johnson County Library District. And of those, only a little more than 25% voted against the referendum. So it was not an overwhelming vote by the citizens of the county, but by the people who decided to come out and oppose that referendum. The other thing is that Barnes & Noble in the past quarter, their revenue went up 11%. So technology is not going to displace actual books. But I think the most important thing is that Johnson County is competing with every other county in Indiana to attract new residents, new businesses, and new employers. And one of the things that they look at is a report that was just put together by Ball State University that ranks the different counties on things like amenities, taxes, educational level. And one of the things that Johnson County is lacking on was amenities. And the public library certainly is a very important amenity for anybody who's planning to move here, who wants to live here, who wants to see what kind of, things are available in this county. The other thing is that the educational ranking is very important, especially in these days, because the manufacturers, new high-tech industries, any new employers want to find a place that has a highly educated populace. And I think one of the most important things, as several people have mentioned tonight, is the helping out the kids. And because they have established full-time kindergarten classes in all the schools, a lot of the kindergarten teachers are finding that many of the kids are not prepared when they come in, and they're going to be playing catch-up for the rest of their academic careers. One of the important things that the library is doing is the Early Learning Center, which really needs to be expanded, and their program has to be able to take in more kids, just to help them to get started before they even get into kindergarten. The other important thing that they provide is the Adult Learning Center, which provides parents with the skills and the resources necessary to help their kids to excel. So I think that focus alone is really important for the library to consider in their decisions. Thank you.
Ed Glazer? Glazer?
Franklin Township, I believe, but don't hold me to that.
Okay.
My questions begin with the fact that I wrote a letter to the editor of the paper about 4 weeks before the election. And the girl called back right away and went over the letter with me and said everything was fine and that it would be printed shortly. But it got to be like 4 days before the election and the letter hadn't been printed yet. So I called Scarlett, the editor, to see what had happened. And she told me that Beverly Martin had read my letter and that my figures were incorrect. Now, what I would like to know is how do you people figure tax rates? Because they said they advertised it the whole time that a $100,000 house would only be increased by $13.95. Well, if you figure the tax rate that was in the paper and on the ballot at 0.0426 cents per $100 of assessed evaluation, that would put the tax rate at $42.60 for a $100,000 house. And I couldn't figure out why the library kept publishing the wrong numbers. And then I read the 2 surveys that you had procured from IUPUI. And there was the answer. Because in those both studies, it stated that if the tax rate was over $40 a year, the overwhelming majority of the taxpayers would turn it down, which they did. And I just wanted to know why that we have the library director reviewing the letters before they're printed in the paper. And also, as far as the, like the computers, they claim the computers need computers for unemployed. Well, they've got a great big unemployment center right over here on Lover's Lane. If anybody here has been unemployed, they are in close contact with these people. These people have computers out the wazoo, and they also have people sitting there that will sit down with you and help you. So for the library to need computers for unemployed is ridiculous. And as far as meeting spaces and recreation areas, there is a large recreation center right across the street. And I want to know how many, they claim there's 150 meetings turned down a year here. How many of those meetings were referenced over to the recreation center?
Yeah, I can't answer.
They also have they have 4 computers over there also that are never used.
Part of that has to do with membership, I think, too.
It's very cheap membership there too, $20 a year.
Okay, anything else?
But that's, there's quite a bit more, but that was the biggest issue, is why they couldn't come up. I think that's why they published the incorrect numbers, because they knew that if they published the true numbers, that nobody would vote for it. And also, one more thing, the remarks that Jay Marks has had in the paper have been very refreshing, and I would like to join the other gentleman because I believe this existing board has a serious credibility problem, and I would also like to ask at this time for everybody except for Jay Marks to resign immediately. Thank you.
Well, I wish I had the power to keep editorials out of the paper.
That's what Scarlett told me.
Well, I'm sorry, but that is not what happens. If you want to take this piece of paper that explains why the rates were published as they were, a person who owns a $142,000 home has both mortgage credits and homestead credits that are figured into the cost. As does the person with the $100,000 home. It's clearly explained right
because
here.
on my tax bill, the library on my tax bill, current tax bill, got almost 7%, 6 point something. When I figured out the percentage that the library was getting, it was exactly what's printed at the bottom of my paper.
I'm not, yeah, we're not here to argue, so.
Can we, let's be respectful of everybody else's time.
I'm just trying to tell the fact.
Okay. Oh, back to it.
Yes, Jim Williams, Needham Township. Appreciate you letting me speak on this. I know some of the board members, and I respect them very much, and I think they've done a good job. I don't have no problems. The biggest problem I have is the amount of money that the project was going to cost and the parking garage. I just felt like a parking garage wasn't going to attract people to a library. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I'm old-fashioned and set in my ways, I guess. But I think we've got a beautiful location here, and I remember this property for many years. I used to haul grain in here for my dad, unload grain in the rail cars over here. This is Black, probably remembers that too. And you know, you've done a wonderful job with this. And I just don't want to see taxes go up more, because I think our county's going to have to put some pretty good sized bills down the road that they don't have money to handle. And with your homestead credits and your property tax caps, we're going to be in trouble for a good while. And I was at the county council meeting when in August, I guess it was, when they asked for the $2 million, and the council did turn them down. And then they went to the city and got permission to go ahead with it. And that really confused me. Are we a county library or are we a city library? And I'm not faulting anybody for what you did. You thought that was a way to get it done. But I think we need to get this straightened out. And I presume the $400,000 that we spent out of the $2 million the county's on the take for that, right? Is the county having to pay, is that where the money's coming from?
It came out of the bond.
Okay, well, yeah, but it's gotta be paid back,
Correct.
and the taxpayers of Johnson County, but the city approved it.
Correct.
So I don't feel like that's quite right. But, you know, it was done, and I don't have no problem with anybody here you felt like that's the way you had to do it. So I think we just need to get everything on board. I voted against the library on this vote. I'm not against your library. I think it's a beautiful place. I go by here probably 15 times a week, and I think it's nice here. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tabling.
My name's Les Stabling. I live about 4 blocks from here. I lived here my entire life. I think there's a common misconception that everybody that was pro-library was pro-library project, and that everybody that was part of Citizens Against the Library Project were anti-library. I don't think either one of those statements are true. And I want to make sure that I make that point because I voted against it. And I voted against it for a number of reasons, but I like the library. I've used the library my entire life, and I'm not anti-library. I think the defeat in the referendum was self-inflicted. I mean, I don't think the referendum was result was the way it was because of the actions of the Citizens Against the Library Project, but I think the press and the letters to the editor swayed the opinions of a lot of people who were on the fence. And the next time it comes to that, I think there needs to be a better dialogue with those people who voted against the library project to find out what's important to them and make them an asset to the library system. There was a lot of name calling, both sides, and that doesn't serve the children very well to see that kind of thing take place. So I would hope that the next time around we do that differently. And as a former lender, I would say that the thing that really swayed me against the project was the lack of a solid business plan. I just didn't see it. If you'd walked into my banking center and said, I want to do this, and I'd start asking you for information to help me decide whether or not my bank was going to loan you the money, I just didn't see the hard facts. There are plenty of soft facts. And let's face it, when it comes down to surveys, surveys will tell you what you want to hear. When I was in banking, we'd bring a company in every 4 or 5 years to take a look at our operations, and they'd bring a bunch of focus groups together. They'd take our opinions, they'd do a PowerPoint presentation, and our bank would write a check for $5 million. They'd come back 5 years later, do another one, write another check. So let's be careful the next time we do this. And I would encourage all of you to involve the people who you think are against the library and separate that from the library, this library project and the library in general. I think we'll all be better off if we all do that.
Mr. Welberry.
My name's Al Wellberry. I live in Franklin Township. I'm a newcomer to Franklin, 20 years now. Evidently. I just would like to say, I hope you guys respect the vote that we just went through. That's all we have left is the right to vote. And we expressed our opinion about which way to go. And like the one fellow said about the number of people that came out to vote, you wouldn't have liked the numbers if we could have picked up every single citizen in Johnson County that could vote, because that was a cross-section of the vote, and the numbers would have just gotten more and more ridiculous against the library proposal. Beverly has continued to tell us that if you do build a library in downtown Franklin, she's going to guarantee us 70,000 people a month coming into downtown Franklin. I've questioned her about that several times, and that's the figure she sticks by.
If we put 70,000 more people into downtown Franklin on a monthly basis, you couldn't turn around down there. We can't park. We don't need a parking garage. I have a building on the corner of West Street and Jefferson. The parking downtown right now is unbelievable, as Mr. Bemis knows. He's getting ready to put a project in downtown. Parking is our biggest problem. The parking garage is not going to solve anything. We're a courthouse community. The people that, if you look at the license plates in the downtown Franklin area, a lot of them are 49, 50 something. They're all Marion County. They're coming down for a reason. They're either going to the probation department, the courthouse, and they're taking up all the parking places downtown. The other side of the coin is we have a lot of merchants downtown that get to their place before anybody else, and they think they need to park in their front door. We have a lot of parking places available for the merchants and the workers that work for them in these buildings, and if they would just kindly park in a public parking lot, they would afford their customers a better opportunity to shop at their place or stop at their place. Don and Donna's is one of them. For years, the waitresses have parked right in front of the building and nobody else could park there. But I do wish that you would respect the vote. And the reason Barnes & Noble stock is up is they came out with a Nook. And it's a sensation. It took over the Kindle. My family is fortunate that they have Kindles and Nooks, and my daughters and my grandchildren are avid readers. My wife brought them up in the library system, but now they've gone to the electronic books, and they really enjoy reading their books in their bedroom, lying on their bed, looking at their Kindle or their Nook, and getting a glass of water or a Coke from the refrigerator, going to their own restroom when they have to, and they're not bothered by anything. Thanks a lot. You guys are good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Novak.
Thank you.
Forgive me, a little while ago I had something happened to my ankle and getting back on my feet. I'm a former resident of Trafalgar, moved there in 1966, and I lived there most of my life, and about 8 years ago moved to Franklin. I'm also a former teacher, and right now I taught 30 years, and now I substitute teach in North and East High School in Columbus. My son also teaches in that area. When I go into the classroom now today, whenever they're doing any of their homework that I oversee all the time, they've got all these little things. I don't know all this stuff today. I am completely blank. I even had to take courses in it, and I don't own the stuff. I don't want to own the stuff today. I don't even have a computer in the home. But anyway, we have all these contraptions they are using in this classroom. They, instead of taking a book out, they got textbooks in the classroom. What are they using? All these little machines and getting all the answers. They got every book that you can think of. If we're going to expand, and again, I voted against the referendum because of the expense. I didn't see the need of that. Also, you could build right onto here and build on a technology department right here. The things you need. You don't need all this elaborate things that you want to have in these buildings. But think of what the students are doing today in school. And everything is going that way with the young people. Remember what they're doing, they've got all the information from every textbook they want to use, from college books right on. So please consider carefully what you are doing, and don't be spending the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Have we missed anybody that would like to speak? Thanks to everybody for showing up. I hope you stay engaged. And I think what I heard out of the group, and the rest of the board can say, is that almost to a person, everybody said that they liked libraries. Yes. And that they thought they were needed. And if we get anything out of this, it's that the library is needed. And we'll move forward, and thank you, and stay engaged in the process.
Thank you.